What if the person you loved the most left you a secret so big it would change your entire life? No cash. No bank account. No note that made sense. Just an old key, a strange letter, and 7 words that didn't add up. This is the true style story of Emily Carter, a 26-year-old woman from a small town in Ohio, USA. A woman who thought she had nothing left until she found out her grandfather had hidden a fortune so well that even he almost took the secret to his grave. Stay till the end, because what she finds in the final 20 minutes of this story will completely change how you look at the people you love. Let's begin. Emily Carter grew up in a small town called Millbrook, Ohio. It wasn't a rich town. It wasn't a poor town either. It was just quiet. The kind of place where everyone knew everyone and nothing exciting ever happened. Her parents passed away in a car accident when she was only 19 years old. From that day, the only family she had left was her grandfather, Henry Carter, a retired mechanic who lived alone in an old farmhouse on the edge of town. Henry wasn't a wealthy man. At least, that's what everyone believed. He drove a rusty old truck. He wore the same brown jacket every winter. He never talked about money, and he never asked for help, even when his knees grew weak and his hands started shaking. Emily moved in with him after her parents died. She took care of him. She cooked his meals, drove him to his doctor's appointments, and listened to his stories every single night on the porch. Life wasn't easy. Emily worked 2 jobs, one at a small diner during the day and another cleaning offices at night. She was exhausted most of the time, but she never complained because Henry was the only family she had left. Years passed. Emily turned 26. She still lived in that same small town, still worked those same tiring jobs, still had almost nothing saved in her bank account. Then one cold morning in November, everything changed. Emily walked into her grandfather's room to bring him his morning coffee, just like she did every day. But this time, he didn't wake up. Henry Carter had passed away peacefully in his sleep at the age of 81. Emily was devastated. The man who raised her, who taught her how to fish, how to fix a car engine, how to be strong even when life was hard, he was gone. After the funeral, Emily was left completely alone.
No parents. No grandfather. No siblings.
Just her, an old farmhouse, a small savings account with less than $300, and a mountain of unpaid bills. She thought that was it. She thought her story was simply a sad one. She had no idea that her grandfather had left her something far bigger than money in the bank. He had left her a mystery. A week after the funeral, a lawyer named Mr. Whitfield contacted Emily. He said Henry had left a will and that Emily needed to come to his office to hear it. Emily assumed it would be simple, the house, maybe the old truck, and that would be it. But when she sat down in that small office, Mr. Whitfield handed her a sealed envelope with her name written on it in her grandfather's handwriting. Inside the envelope was a short letter. Emily read it out loud, her hands trembling. "My dear Emily, if you are reading this, then I am no longer with you. I know life has been hard on you, harder than it should have been for someone so young. I want you to know something. I was not always a mechanic. Long before you were born, I made a choice that protected our family in a way you cannot imagine. I hid something for you, something I never touched because it was never mine to spend. It was always meant for you. Find the 4 corners, and you will find the truth. I love you more than words can say. Grandpa Henry." Emily read the letter 3 times. She had no idea what it meant. Find the 4 corners. What 4 corners? Mr. Whitfield told her something even stranger. Henry had visited his office exactly 1 year before his death and asked him to hold onto a small wooden box, with strict instructions that it should only be opened by Emily and only after his passing. Emily's hands shook as she opened the box. Inside, there was an old photograph of a house she didn't recognize, a rusted metal key, and a folded piece of paper with a hand-drawn map. This wasn't just a farewell letter. This was the beginning of a real search, a search for something her grandfather had hidden for almost 50 years. Emily didn't sleep that night. She sat at the kitchen table with the letter, the photograph, and the map spread out in front of her, trying to make sense of it all. The next morning, She visited the town's local library and searched through old newspaper archives. She wanted to know more about her grandfather's early life, a life he had never spoken about. What she found shocked her. In the 1960s, before he became a mechanic, Henry Carter had worked at a small private bank in a nearby city. Old newspaper clippings mentioned a break-in at that very bank in 1968, an incident that was never fully solved. Some money and valuables reported missing were never recovered. Emily's heart raced. Was her grandfather somehow connected to this? She kept digging and found an old employee photo from the bank. There he was, a much younger Henry Carter, standing beside his co-workers in front of the building. The building in the old photo was the exact same house shown in the photograph from the wooden box. Emily realized her grandfather hadn't stolen anything. Newspaper records later showed that the bank had shut down shortly after the break-in due to financial mismanagement by its owner, and any unclaimed assets legally became the property of employees who had unpaid wages owed to them, according to an old state law clause mentioned in the closure documents. Henry had been one of those unpaid employees. In simple words, the fortune wasn't stolen. It was something Henry was legally owed, but he had never claimed it because he didn't want to draw attention, and later, life simply moved on without him ever going back for it. Now, decades later, that unclaimed inheritance sat somewhere, waiting. And Emily was the only person left who could find it. The hand-drawn map led Emily to an abandoned property about 40 minutes outside of Millbrook, the same building from the old bank photograph. It had been empty for decades, boarded up and mostly forgotten by the town. With the rusty key in her pocket, Emily drove out early one Saturday morning. The building was falling apart. Broken windows, dust everywhere, and silence that made her skin crawl. But she remembered her grandfather's words, "Find the four corners." At first, she thought it meant the four corners of the building. She checked each corner of the main room. Nothing. Then she remembered something Henry used to say when she was a child, whenever they played cards on rainy days. "Always check the floor before you check the walls, Emily. That's where people forget to look." She knelt down at each corner of the room and tapped the floorboards. 3 corners were solid, but the 4th corner, near the old fireplace, sounded hollow. With trembling hands, Emily pried up the loose floorboard using an old screwdriver she found nearby. Underneath, there was a small rusted safe, exactly the same size as the rusty key in her hand. Her heart pounded as she inserted the key and turned it.
Click.
The safe opened. Inside were old bank bonds, a stack of silver coins, several pieces of jewelry wrapped in cloth, and a folder of documents proving Henry's unpaid wages and ownership claim from the old bank closure. Emily sat on that dusty floor and cried, not just because of what she found, but because she finally understood her grandfather completely. He hadn't been a poor mechanic living a small, quiet life by accident. He had spent his whole life quietly protecting something for her, waiting for the right moment, even if that moment came after he was gone. Emily brought everything to Mr. Whitfield, the lawyer, along with the documents she found. He was stunned. He explained that because the paperwork clearly showed Henry's legal claim and Emily was his only living heir, everything in that safe legally belonged to her. It took a few months of paperwork, valuations, and legal processing. The old bonds and coins were appraised by a specialist, and the total value shocked everyone in town. It was worth several $100,000. For the first time in her life, Emily wasn't drowning in bills. She wasn't working 2 exhausting jobs just to survive. But money wasn't the only thing that changed. Emily finally understood why her grandfather always told her, "Patience builds more than money ever will." He wasn't just talking about the fortune. He was talking about life itself. Emily didn't disappear into a life of luxury. Instead, she paid off her grandfather's remaining debts, fixed up the old farmhouse she grew up in, and used part of the money to open a small diner in Millbrook, the same town where she had once worked exhausting shifts just to get by. She named the diner Henry's Corner. Every table in that diner has a small brass plaque with a short version of her grandfather's story, so that anyone who sits down for a meal learns a little piece of his patience, his silence, and his love. Emily still visits that old abandoned building sometimes, just to sit in the fourth corner of that empty room and remember the man who quietly changed her life, long before she even knew it. So that's the story of Emily Carter, a woman who lost everything, and yet, without even knowing it, had everything waiting for her all along. Her grandfather didn't leave her cash in a bank account. He left her patience, love, and a lesson that some of the greatest gifts in life are hidden in silence, waiting for the right person to find them. If this story touched your heart even a little, remember this: the people who love you quietly are often the ones protecting you the most. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe for more videos like this, hit the like button, and let us know in the comments, what's one lesson someone in your family taught you without ever saying a word? Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next story.